I'm at the Davenriche School for Historical European Martial Arts, and I'm with JT. And JT, why don't you tell us where you're from?
I'm from Boise, Idaho. I relocated to San Jose about 7 years ago. Came here for work, and I've just been living since.
Where did you first hear about HEMA? Did you hear about it back in Boise? Or?
No, my first experience with it, honestly, was at the Renaissance Fair, the local Renaissance Fair. I was looking for a hobby to occupy my time. I was new in the Bay Area and was just looking for something that would be a fun thing to do. And honestly, at first I was researching falconeering because I wanted to have a strange hobby that I thought was interesting, but wasn't like a beer league football team or indoor soccer or something, right? I wanted something interesting. So while researching falconeering, this is where that's kind of where I first heard of HEMA and discovered sword fighting. When I first showed up, I was more just surprised that that was something you could do. I didn't know that that was something you could really do. And there are, in fact, sword masters all over the world, which is just a cool thing to say, but it's also kind of surreal at the same time too, just because you don't think about that, you know? So I mean, I was specifically looking for something that was kind of out of the norm, and this is what I found, and I love it, man. First time I got hit in the head, I was ready.
Earlier, and he talked about the School of Hard Knocks and how there's different styles of learning, and his way was, put on the helmet, get knocked around until you learn how to dodge. It's interesting now, though, the school kind of teaches technique, and then it also teaches through like rote action. And so like when you guys are practicing, I see the instructors giving you like hands-on advice and working on your technique, but then they really leave it to you to figure it out on your own.
We are kind of left to, we're given the basic instruction, and then we're really left to just play with it. I mean, it's really the way that it works. It's a system that works in a way that makes it so that a novice sword fighter, or someone that just wants to see what it's about, can start sparring with, or start learning valuable information from a very experienced sword fighter. And the experienced sword fighter is not missing out on their drill either because of how the techniques are taught and how the system itself works. It works in a way that is conducive for the beginner to keep going and learn something, and for the experienced person to work on something they may be having trouble with also.
Yeah, an interesting thing is normally when they teach like an athletic skill or like, for example, a creative skill like music, you're usually put in like a beginner class.
Yeah.
And when you're put in a beginner class with other beginners, it's very hard to increase your skill because you're with people who are also beginning. So like you said, by being thrown in with the masters, you really got to pick it up.
Oh yeah. And I learn something damn near every time that I train with someone. Whether I'm training with someone that just started, like it's their first training routine, and they've just learned how to hold a sword and do 2 or 3 guards. I learned something with them all the same as training with someone that's been doing it for 10 years and is running me through a little bit more advanced drills. It's, and I think that's something that is very valuable in a training system like this too. That it's very inclusive of new people. It's not a you don't want them to get scared their first time, sword swinging at them or something, but it's very beginner friendly.
So the community is very open, even though it's historical European martial arts. You see people from all kinds of backgrounds and walks of life.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And I talked to Master Fick about the solstice feast that you guys have.
Oh yeah, it's a good time for the folks who attend the school to come in and share in each other's company. And we all share there's a few things that we all share in common with everybody in here. And we love swords and everything that revolves around them, the martial aspect, the historical aspect, the artistic aspect of it. And some people just simply like swords, they don't want to compete, they don't want to do the historical reenactments or anything. They just enjoy maybe they just enjoy the sound of metal on metal, Like see, that was cool sounding. And there was a little bit of sparks that came up off of his, yeah. So, there's that part too, that it's just fun to watch also. And I think that there is something for every type of person's tastes, sort of a historical recreation of kind of a lost martial art that's really starting to gain a lot of headway and steam right now with people having a new interest in it. You know, it's not that swords were forgotten; they were just kind of put aside for more effective weapons, right? But it's seen a new resurgence, which guys like me are like, well, heck yeah, that's awesome. You know, we get to play with swords now. And you know what young kids didn't pick up a stick or two and start play fighting, you know? I personally am just getting my feet into the tournaments, which is a little bit different because it's a point system. So you're not doing, you're limited to certain maneuvers and such.
Is it different from fencing?
No, I mean, it's still a point system, it's still a point game, a back and forth point game. You defend, you advance, and, it's, no, I don't think it's all that different. Maybe a little more exciting, maybe a little more, maybe they're hitting a little bit harder than what an epi can do. But then again, an epi in the right hands will probably be pretty devastating, right? I'm sure it could happen.
So it seems like the community is growing, everyone's kind of helping each other out, and it sounds like the community is actually kind of like propping itself up.
Absolutely, yeah. This community itself, from my experience, my personal experience into it, has been nothing but positive. It's absolutely awesome. It's kind of like the idea of, for the individual to succeed, the whole has to succeed. There's no ego in there. We try to. I haven't experienced any of that within this community whatsoever. And I'm sure, like any sort of competitive sport, I'm sure it's there, but I haven't seen much of it, if any. I've been greeted with nothing but open arms and help, and I don't know how safe it is to hang out with people that are smiling with swords pointed at you, but they have your best interest in mind. I mean, one thing that gets stressed a lot of that I remember when I very first started was safety. Safety was always a really big issue that, it needed to be, if something hurt and it was impeding your movement in some way, it's okay, sit down, take a break, let somebody know. If an opponent is maybe swinging too hard, just say something, and they will adjust to that. It's a very open communication while training, because for me to do my training exercise adequately enough for me to learn, I have to make sure that you're getting the same sort of adequate treatment, the best I can give you. And if you give me your best, then I can give you my best, And like safety, I think, really has a lot to do with that, like being concerned of my opponent's safety as well as my own. It also teaches discipline and control too. If you can't safely control your blade while training, then how can you safely, defend and guard yourself too? And that's where the discipline comes into, is knowing when to make a hard attack and when not to. That sort of thing. There's a good one right there. And that was probably from when I crossed swords with a guy and we got in close and we're moving around. And like any sort of competitive sport or anything, you've got to take care of your equipment too. It is a great sign of discipline to take care of your equipment. And I think, it's a nice thing to do for the people that you're competing with too. Nobody wants to get hit by a sword that has burrs on it. I had a wooden sword that he managed to get it just underneath my helmet and put about I'd say it was probably about 1.5 inches, maybe 2-inch long splinter in my neck. That was not the most fun time, no. And it doesn't take much for that to happen.
See, that looks badass.
Awesome. See, that's half the reason we do all this, is to look badass.
That's perfect.
And I mean, what's cooler than having a bunch of swords on your wall and having your buddies come to your house and, they ask you if you even know how to use any of them, right? And you're like, oh yeah, let me show you. Matter of fact, I do.
You don't just show them, you kick their ass. Here, you pick one up, I'll show you a thing.
Right? That's why I keep a spare helmet at home too.
Yeah.
I think that's feeling pretty good. Oh yeah, that's nice and smooth. Oh, there's one right there.
So is humor an expensive sport? I mean, got to be some kind of investment to get a sword.
It does get expensive. What you pay for is going to be quality. Say that price tends to denote quality. And there's a lot of companies that are coming out with new equipment and such. This sword right here is a lutel. And a lutel blade is, they're pretty highly sought after. They're definitely high quality, great swords. And you know, the community kind of judges what's good quality. And it's usually, you know, the people that have practiced with them enough, they use them and they see, you know, some break, some bend, you know, and these lutels have come as some of the most highly recommended. And they're not the most expensive, but they're spendy. But I'd say a good blunt longsword, I'd say maybe on the low end around $500 or $600, and on the high end, you know, $1,000 to $1,500. There's definitely budget blades that are okay to do some light sparring with and some training with, but I wouldn't rely on them in like a tournament setting.
So it's seeing a resurgence. There's a lot of new innovation, and there's a lot of opportunity for people to get in. It's not bloody expensive. You can get a wooden sword for cheaper. You can try and
Yeah, definitely. And there's makers of all that. Like, there's a lot of companies that you can find online that have quality products. And one of the best things to do is honestly just show up and ask questions. If you're curious about something, you see a set of gloves that somebody's wearing and they seem to work really well, you know, find out where you got them, see where they are.
Any words of advice for someone who might be interested but not too sure, kind of on the fence?
Just get in it. Just do it. HEMA is a great place for them to come into because it's such an inclusive type of community that, you know, it's for everybody. And you'll find there's something in it for everybody. It's not just long swords. You know, there's a whole list of weaponry that's available. The main discipline that we study from here is from Fiore, which, I mean, he doesn't even start training in the longsword. I believe it begins with the dagger work. And it goes into a lot of other aspects too, from dagger to staff to spear, and longsword is just part of it. Like the longsword is a small piece of a bigger whole of the whole thing. And then it's really cool too to kind of share in something that is, at one time, this was the main tool of defense. It was real, it happened. And there were people that were really good with them. And you know, those people are starting to discover that sword again and become really good with it. It's pretty exciting.
Any last wrap-up thoughts?
Just to anybody that might discover this sort of thing and they have even the slightest interest to check it out, just go. Have someone drop you off and then pick you up in an hour. You know, it's one of the most fun things that I've discovered. I really wished I would have found it earlier, to be honest with you. If I would have found this 10 years before, oh man, it would have been way better. But yeah, just get into it. It's a blast.
Hey, thanks, JT.
You're welcome. Thank you.